Recently I've been rewatching some old YouTube videos and I stumbled across something that I remembered like a few years ago. It made me feel pretty sad, and recently when I watched it, it awakened the same feelings in me again. There was that YouTube guide like how to edit your videos made by a guy called Finzar, and everything was fine, but in his video one thing that really struck me is he said something like, when recording you should make your jokes as generic as possible because then a wider audience will understand it.
Be completely honest with yourself. Start cutting out bits which you think might only be funny to you, because remember, you want your audience to be in on the joke. I learned this while discussing YouTube with a friend of mine, Ren.
It's a slow trickle. You start a video with an inside joke that 6 people are going to get in the whole world. It's not going to do well. No one's going to stick around. You've got to generalize yourself and make sure everybody understands the joke.
And I completely disagree with that. I mean, okay, he has some point because he's talking from his perspective and it clearly worked out for him, but I don't think that it's the good way to go about things. I don't know if you've noticed, but pretty much every form of media recently is more and more generic. Like, I remember the old days of YouTube where everybody had their own, like, personality and people were, like, different from each other, whereas these days every other YouTuber is the exact copy of another, and I really don't like that. The same thing happens with like TV shows and a bunch of other things where I think that people making those try as hard as possible not to offend anyone. And from a business standpoint and from business point of view, I guess this kind of makes sense, but I also don't like seeing this kind of thing on, for example, like YouTube and stuff, because something you have to understand is that because yes, making your jokes more generic or like videos in general will perhaps allow you to cater to a wider audience, but I think there's this scale where if you make something more generic, more and more people will be able to say like, yes, this is okay, there's nothing bad about this. Like, they won't hate it, but I don't think there will also be anyone who loves it. And I think that the more you are your true self, the more you try to be someone different, the more people will hate you, sure, but then there will be also like a lot of people who will love you. I also really love the jokes that kind of strike me personally, like if they're about something that is very personal to me. And I think that we as humanity, we have that certain kind of globalization going on where I think with every year people are getting more and more similar to each other. Like in the past there were many small communities, and even for example you could even see the differences in countries, and for example Japan was isolated for I'm pretty sure it was even hundreds if not thousands of years, and that's the reason why they are so different right now. And I think this is a really good thing, because I don't want all people to be the same, and I think that the world is getting more and more connected these days, which is not a bad thing in itself. It's really great that we can connect with each other even if we are on two different sides of the world. It's great, really, but also I think some really small communities of people are dying because everybody is connected. Everybody is many people from different countries, they actually look at the same kinds of videos. I don't know if you've noticed, but there is a lot of videos on YouTube that just get millions of views, and I think that because different people are watching the same exact videos, they, for example, become very similar to each other. Because let's think about it. If two people, for example, always learn the same kind of thing, always watch the same kind of thing from the day that they are born, sure, there will be some differences between them, but I think they will be really similar, and I don't really like that. I think people should be different from each other, and I think that these days we are really going in a totally different direction. English is main language, and pretty much everybody these days knows it, which is a cool thing again, because we can all talk with each other and everybody understands English, which is great because we have a way to communicate with people from other countries. But then I also think that like this will lead to many like small cultures like withering over time. They will just fade into non-existence. And I think even on the internet, where theoretically many people were advocates of the internet like long ago, because no matter what were your interests, you could find somebody who would share your interests with you, and that was a really cool thing. But nowadays I think many small communities really struggle to get new people coming, and they are just dying. Because YouTube, when you watch YouTube on and on, it will just keep recommending the same thing over and over to you, because YouTube is a business and they cannot really risk showing something that will put you off their platform, so they will close you in this bubble. You know, you probably know what this means. They will close you in this bubble and just show you the same thing over and over because they know you will watch it. They will never really risk showing you something that you don't know yet. And I think this is kind of not cool. I think that the thing about nowadays YouTube is that it's getting more and more like still. It's becoming more and more like solid thing that doesn't change at all. Like YouTube keeps only recommending those people who get like thousands of views, and you know, small creators kind of have a hard time being like getting any kind of recognition. I really don't like that. And back to the case of Finzar, there is something that I want to tell you to possibly prove my point. Think about it for a second. If you know Finzar, he is the guy who makes those like really high polished tutorials. Like he really spends a lot of time editing. There are many other people like him, for example Martin Sitopants. And the thing about Finzar is, I think recently, well, not recently, like for a few years now, there had been more and more YouTubers like this who just have nothing for themselves. They have like no personality really, and all they do is like really well edited videos, and that's it. So they can edit well, but other than that, they have no personality. And don't you think that Finzar is kind of like that as well? None of his jokes are particularly original yet. Like, I don't know about you, but I've seen like many people like that. Like if you, for example, I don't know, gave me a Finzar video and changed his voice to someone else's, I would not know that this is his video. You know what I mean? And yes, I agree with him that making your jokes will probably give you more views, but I think that this is not the right way to go, because I think if we continue being like that, I think if we don't embrace originality and difference, we might wake up in a world where at some point we will all be a part of the wall and we will just be identical bricks in it, not distinguishable from one another.